Welcome to the Guthrie America podcast. We sit down with amazing people who do life in our community because we believe every story should be told. I'm your host, Hetty Coleman. Today I'm sitting down with Tiffany Bohrer. And before we jump into this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, with Tiffany, would you please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, all the goodness. If you think of it, subscribe to it. We're probably there. Just look for Guthrie America. And Tiffany, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. Now, Tiffany, we'll have a great bio in the description, and so just check that out. But for now, we're just gonna jump in this conversation and just kind of go from there. Doing good today?
I am.
You brought your
awesome.
handsome husband with you?
I did.
Now I get to live in the same community as you all.
Yes.
You all are together
A
often,
lot.
a lot, all the time. I think it's so. Is it because one of you are more outgoing than the other? Because for me and my wife, I think she's more so always with me because she's just chilling. But both of y'all have pretty big personalities, though.
We do. We certainly do. So yes, we. It's interesting. We're both kind of homebodies, though, except when I have to be out on the road and I do my classes out on the road. So, and then I'm a little bit more what we like to call front of the house in the restaurant business.
Okay. Yes, I'm.
So
familiar.
where I'm the greeter, and then Joe likes to be back of the house. I don't think he would argue with me on that.
Okay.
No. Okay. So he's not shy, but I feel like he's intentionally reserved a bit when it comes to the greeting with people, and so so he's more, again, just the wind beneath my wings.
Helps you float and stay. Yes. I love it. I think it's really cool that when I see couples like that. And over the years, like just growing up in Guthrie, I've seen different couples like that, like just kind of always together, kind of working the same lane of doing the same thing or supporting one another.
Yes.
And I just think it's really cool.
Yes.
I think that's really cool. So my grandparents were like that. And so I appreciate it when I see those kind of things.
Yeah.
So
He's,
tell me how you got into becoming Tipsy Artist.
All right. So I was actually very young when I started. And for the YouTube audience, I do have a visual. So this will be a good way for your audience to go to. Where do I?
Right here.
Okay. So for those of you who are just listening in, this is a picture of me when I think I was in about the 4th grade. And I did a pageant in West Texas, Midland, Texas. I was like, where was I? Midland, Texas at the time. And I was... I was very shy. That's the first thing I was going to say. And this is the first thing that really brought me out of my shell. But the other thing was that I couldn't do, well, I guess I could have, but it wouldn't have been pleasurable for anyone if I had done a little song. Or,
okay.
It's not,
so you don't sing, is that what you're telling us?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So that's
I won't
not
ask you to do that.
not my forte.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I'll just lean into what I was already gifted with. And at that particular time, I was very much into art. My mom she noticed I had a gift. She had me in some private lessons already and was really trying to nurture that. And I just thought, well, I could do a little bit up there as an artist. And so we made it more, it was still instruction, but it was also very entertaining. So it was really cute at the time. I did a little, some poetry that I had written. It was very cheesy. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what it was, but probably something to do with, red and blue and, I love you and here's my art too. And who knows?
Yeah. So to make sure that I hear you in the audience here, you saying you were doing art, but at the same time you were doing some poetry with that and kind of turned it into almost a whole show?
Right.
Okay.
So it had to be, for the talent section of the pageant. So you had to make it entertaining, like a presentation.
Got you.
So I had a big That was actually a painting that I just showed you. That was my first oil painting with a hawk. And then I had a really big sketching pad where I had many of my drawings, and I would flip them and talk about them. But I used some really cheesy poetry to guide myself through it and stay on track.
Got you.
So to me, that's how I feel like I really started with the whole idea of teaching in an entertaining way with, presentation and trying to really be engaging for the audience. So that's how I started with that. Did not start drinking yet. There's the Tipsy Artist. People just...
I didn't even think of it.
Yeah. So...
I'm glad you clarified that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And ironically, I don't really... I've always been a very... I don't drink that much, and I barely drink anymore as I get older. We just can't drink it anymore. I don't know. It doesn't like us. It doesn't... So I get really bad headaches and that kind of thing. So I tend to be, my tipsy, I guess, or my feel good comes from actually doing the art itself. And I just, so I tend to rock this bottled water most of the time. That's kind of my jam. But then I guess when you start venturing into the professional side of it, when my kids were little, we really became very involved with crafting with the moms, and so we started doing, cocktails and crafts and stuff like that. And
now at this time, were you just doing this out of your house, or
just out of my house, very casual? Just started to notice that was what we all enjoyed doing together. And back then, it was more scrapbooking. And then my art's evolved quite a bit, too. And I'll get to that here in a little bit. But initially, it was just more about small, intimate gatherings, teaching, and just kind of getting together and leading them through little projects. Mm-hmm. But it actually leaned a lot more into collage, and because that's more of what my art was about initially, was the collage. And then that's a... kind of a different segue in terms of I used to, my main professional identity at that time was more selling art. I did a little teaching on the side, and I had been a school teacher before, but I had a showroom at the World Trade Center in Dallas, the Dallas Market Center, and I did a lot of hand-tooled metal crosses. That was my thing, and I was in boutiques all over the Midwest, and it was thriving. It was doing really well. And then I started to become frustrated with that process because once I had a lot of stamping. I had big, heavy equipment, and then I did a lot of tooling over and over again, but my patterns started to become essentially the same because I did everything for stores, and I think I got up to about 150 stores at one time. So it was very busy, and I was very grateful for the success. But what I noticed was that once you have a presentation at market, you have certain designs, and you really can't deviate from that. You have to recreate that design over and over and over again. So then I was just hand tooling in the design over and over and over again, the same design.
So this isn't painting. You were like making something.
I had layers of Dupioni silk and raw silk on, that was my first layer. And I was gluing that down, and then I was hand tooling the little crosses. And I had a big die cutting machine that I would cut out different shapes in because I had a gift line where they were like little tiny little things like this big. And then I did big giant crosses that I did for churches and stuff. So that was a little bit more creative in terms of that work. I enjoy that a little bit more because people would come to me and they would want certain symbolism, and then I would be able to draw into that and be a little bit more creative. But when it came to the smaller pieces, which was hundreds and thousands really, I never could quite figure out how to do that in a way where it was mass-produced. And I remember my mentor at the time said, well, you're going to have to go to Mexico and get to know them and do the resin. And my kids were like this. And I'm like, I'm not going to Mexico right now. It's not happening. Yeah. So before I knew it, my whole look was quickly copied, and you could just see it everywhere. basically all the materials and the look was recreated in a way that could be mass produced,
Yeah.
which is what I always really wanted to do, but I missed the boat for sure on that.
Did when you started seeing that, of course it was frustrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, was there like, oh wow, my stuff is so good that other people want to steal it?
Right. So that's very flattering and lovely. So thankful for that too. Yes.
I always tell people are always like, did you get the trademark? Did you get, I'm like,
yeah.
no, if somebody steals it, they steal it.
Yeah.
I just feel like I can come up with another idea.
Right.
But at the same time, you do want to not miss the boat on something
Right.
that could be so beneficial
Yeah.
financially to your family and
Right.
to yourself. But at the same time, it's pretty cool to be.
And I was warned ahead of time, but to me, it was more of a lifestyle choice, and I just couldn't go that route. Yeah. And so I don't really have any regrets on that. And then I remember the time I just thought, whatever God has for me, it's going to be. I actually remember my major was painting in college, and then my minor was drawing. And I remember thinking, I was becoming weary of the lack of creativity in my work because I was, again, just making the same thing over and over and over again. So I remember praying, okay, I really want to be a painter where I can constantly create new work, new designs. And the beauty of a painting is that it's not saying it can't be copied, but it is so much more unique that it is much harder to copy. And so you have more copy, and plus it's just so much more affordable to do copyright protection on your work and be covered there. That's extremely affordable. You can do huge volumes at a time and create a catalog and copyright it for, back in the day, I think, it's like $30 to $50 or something.
Gotcha.
So that was so easy. And then, so I just wanted to get to the place where I could really start to paint. And then sure enough, the business really started to evolve to that classic experience of just painting. And I do think it's funny, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, how'd you come up with Tipsy Artist? And I think, well, of course, there is the marketing. I've always had a strength in marketing. That's always been a big passion of mine as well. And so that part was more of a marketing decision. But in terms of the experience of what we do in Tipsy Artist, there's nothing about that that was my original idea. The idea of teaching people how to paint with a glass of wine on hand is... I'd be a really old soul if...
You said that.
I'm sorry, my husband invented that. He invented drinking and painting at the same time. I'm sorry, I take that back.
You definitely didn't come up with that.
I did not.
But the marketing part of it, calling it Tipsy Artist,
Yes.
is kind of
Right.
was your idea of kind
Yes.
of how you can market it, get
Yes.
it out there, reach an audience.
Right, and we really wanted to come up with something that was that said this is about having fun and being relaxed. We didn't want it to be drunkartist.com. That was not what we were wanting.
You wanted it to sound professional.
Right. We
a
want
little bit more classy.
It's a balance, So, yeah. So it was definitely with intention a name that was about relaxing, having fun, and also, I do a lot of classes where there's no alcohol involved too. So either way, for a while I did I tell people who I'm working with, I think I kept another domain just in case, like blessingandbrushes.com, just kind of a side thing where, okay, if I'm doing a class at a church and they're looking for a name, then at least I have, a backup, so that there's no association with that either.
With the
so,
tipsy part.
right,
So you came to Guthrie when?
2012,
Okay.
I think.
So how long before that were you doing Tipsy Artist?
So we, from the grassroots of my living room, that probably started, 2006.
Okay.
And then more of a professional, and more of like actually starting to get paid more like 2008. And then, just little spurts. But it didn't really take off until I went to Guthrie.
Okay.
So Guthrie America, y'all, that's where it's at.
Yeah. for that moment. So yeah, I remember when when y'all first came to town, like you started walking downtown and y'all had the whole like cars would be everywhere.
Right.
You were like, what is going on? And then of course you
Yes.
could see in the windows everybody painting and doing their thing. And so it was just really cool. And then I love seeing traffic come to Guthrie, like people are coming to visit and then learning more about the work that y'all were doing. I was like, oh, this is super cool. But I'm always interested in like, okay, now was she already booming before this, or did it take off when you got to Guthrie? Because not only were you doing them in Guthrie, then you started doing them like these big event centers, right?
Yes. So it really started to take off when I came to Guthrie, and there's a little bit of, my husband hates it when I use this word, but synergy.
Okay.
He thinks
Are you anti-synergy?
he thinks it's cheesy.
Joe, are you anti-synergy?
It's cringy.
It's cringy. What word would you prefer?
I give a hard time. He's like, synergy. Let's synergize. Yes.
The synergy.
Yeah, so I have to throw down the synergy word. But the synergy word was more, it was really about, well, for sure, being in Guthrie, there was some things that really happened there to help me blossom and grow as an artist. But Facebook, it was the first time they had opened up sales with advertising. So I was
What year was that?
Gosh, I'm not exactly sure. I feel like it had to be about 2012, 2013. I need to go back and look at my receipts.
Yeah.
But I just know I spent a lot of money with Facebook. But yeah, but that was a huge deal. So I started playing with that and doing those little ads, and it just took off like wildfire. So that was the big thing. And I used to have people come to me at that time and go, is it Facebook? And I go, no.
No, it's just me.
It's just me.
I'm like, well, how did they hear about you? I don't know. Just word of mouth.
Yeah, right. I was pretty, now it's like the secret's out. Everybody knows about Facebook now.
Well, I think for me, like you were one of the early ones to have like 100,000 plus people that I knew,
right.
Following you on Facebook. And so now sitting down, I didn't have a clue at that time how you had gained that type of following. But I mean, at some point, that's what most people are doing anyway to grow. Very few are organic,
right?
When you start getting those kind of numbers.
Yes, and there's certainly I have to. Everything that's really just flowed to me has definitely been a God thing.
Yeah, but
there's definitely something about I still have to work really, really hard. I mean, there's a formula. Like I've noticed that it has to be. I kind of tease myself a little bit and say it's my Vanna White look, and that's kind of an older reference. If you're too young, you won't get that. But is she still around? I think.
I think so.
I think she's AI now or something.
Yeah, she's AI now. Yeah. Right. They've got her.
No, but I think she's still on the show.
But she's kind of got her little look where she does this.
Yeah.
So everybody else in the industry was just showing a painting. And I became really the first and still only that I know. I don't see that many people that hold up a painting like this. And for the most part, most corporate brands cannot because they employ too many artists and they can't have just one person representing their brand. It's more of a team. And so you don't want it to be personified in that way. So you really want it. So that's a smart decision on their part. But it did make me stand out since I was an individual and I could go ahead and show who I was as a personality with the painting. So I would, hold it up and constantly be with my work so that they would know that, they would start to identify me. And it's funny when I go travel, I laugh with my kids. I'm like, yeah, I'm famous in truck stops, all over. People are like, hey, you're that painting lady. You're that painter.
Lady.
I've seen you on Facebook. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, it's just that's really how it started to take off. It was that. However, I have to say, I have to be it's not just about me, though, because if my painting is not on point and what they want to do, then I have to go back to the drawing board and redesign until they really love the painting.
And when you say they, you're talking about your customers.
My
the people
customers.
who want to come and.
They're very now. In the beginning, I have to admit, I could almost just whisper a painting. I mean, it didn't matter what I did. But now that's not the case. There's a lot of competition. They have a lot of choices, and so I have to really make sure that I have a winner. And so
many choices. I don't know if it was like, you know how you buy a new car and you like nobody has it, and then as soon as you get it, you see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I saw you, I had never seen anything like that where people were coming and I thought it was like, they're not drinking and painting. That's just, like, what in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, it took a few years, but then I started like, oh, other people are doing it. And then also now they're like, we'll ship the canvases to your house and you do it online and all of that different stuff. But you also were doing like big events. Like you'd be in event centers and hundreds of people, it seems like, were in those rooms doing it.
Yeah, so we actually have the world record for the largest paint and sip class in the entire world. So I have a picture.
Let me see this.
So this is for the YouTube crowd. So if you're on YouTube.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Look at that.
So
that's hold on. Let me grab a picture too,
Yeah.
just because I just want a picture.
Yeah.
To say that I was in the room with the person who got the. Now was Joe at this?
Yes.
He was. Where was he in the back?
He was in the back of the house. This is what I was talking about. Yeah. So this is.
He don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. So.
Oh, great. Until you talk about how you set up for 981.
Oh my goodness.
Paint.
Well, it was 1006. Was actually I went back and found it, and So So it was.
A lot of work.
It was a lot of work. So we actually had to go up, I think several days at least another day. Maybe it was 2 days in advance one day in advance.
Where was
Felt
this
like
at?
2. So this was Woodward Event Center.
Okay.
And which I thought that was interesting too, because my stepdad was from there and I had family from there, so that was pretty cool. But they said I outsold Duck Dynasty. So that was when the big craze was really hitting.
Oh, yeah.
And then the oil business was just booming in Woodward, and there was nothing else to do.
What year was this?
I should know this. I feel like it was 2014.
Okay.
I think it's 2014, and it was February. I need to go back and I should know.
So
this,
was it a Valentine event?
So it was February, and the painting we did was a cross, and it had a heart in the middle, which I also thought was just a great tribute. Just like,
Yeah.
My husband's going to be over there making fun of me again. But yeah. So, because I was famous for doing crosses before when I lived in Texas.
Yeah.
And then I thought, and then actually that translated well. For the longest time, I did just a ton of cross paintings too, just a ton. And so, yeah, a lot. But that was actually all those women painting crosses. So
was there not one man in that room at the time? Except Joe?
There may have been.
Joe and the...
Joe was there. It's not painting, but yeah. There probably was. But it is mostly women.
But 1,006 women, they couldn't have all been from Woodward. Or
No.
Ardmore. Was it Ardmore or Woodward?
Woodward.
Yeah, Woodward.
And no, I would target surrounding areas
Yeah.
for sure. So we had people probably as far as maybe like Perryton, Texas, Follett, Texas. Again, little bitty towns, very remote, and then any little bitty town you can imagine. But Woodward's really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Where there's just, may have been a few women from Enid that went out there for that. And it was crazy because they had some snow, as you can just imagine, and but they got it figured. It was all clear beforehand, so there was a big risk there too.
Yeah.
Like, oh goodness, are we gonna have to reschedule this whole thing? But it all worked. Everything aligned, and they were just overwhelmed with the parking, they were just parking out in fields and the grass, and I'm sure women have some stories for me. Like, thanks a lot, Tipsy Artist.
You got me all dirty and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the cold. And
So I know you mentioned Facebook. At the time, were you collecting email addresses too? Like, did you start doing some of that, or
I was. I knew the importance of email. You know, marketing had been a big passion of mine, and so I had a little marketing company that I had for a while that I did, and so I did a lot to help other businesses too. So I really understood the value of, I could track the metrics on it and go, wow, an email blast is huge.
Yeah.
Like, they would be spending so much money on magazines, for example, back then, and there was no way to even, there was no QR codes back then.
Yeah.
There's no way to track except for
if
maybe
people were
surveys.
reading it, or yeah.
And so, but an email blast, and we would even see the surge and the huge spike in sales as soon as the email blast would go, and we could target it and track it with, you know, a code or something.
Yeah.
So it just became, okay, I definitely see the value of this. So we would collect all those emails, and that's becoming, you know, I don't know how other people feel about it, but for me, you know, I got up my base, it's about 18,000, I guess. But it's been a little bit not as effective. It's just, email's a harder market now just because of all the restrictions, and so many people have so much in place to block emails now.
Send it to spam.
It's a little harder to get through. Yeah. So
is Facebook still king for you?
Facebook is still king.
Yeah.
And then Instagram. I do an automatic thing to where it's Facebook and Instagram, where basically they just shoot out simultaneously to both. But for sure, my Facebook's still big, and it's probably has something to do with my age too. So the Instagram is a younger market, and I still attract that, but my core demographic is 25 to 65. And, you know, if you look at the chart, you know, once you get, you know, I mean, I don't. But,
I love this chart. I love the
like
way
my little
you-
chart. But once we get closer to, I mean, my sweet spot is obviously my age, and I am 54.
Okay.
So it's for sure, like, and you know, people who have been with me for, you know, 15 years or however long it's been. That may not be the exact number, because I feel like I've been saying that number for a while. And it's like women who say they're 49 for a long time, and it's like, oh no, you're older than that, honey. Yeah. But for however long it's been going on, you know, that's, you know, we've all kind of like grown up together through the system. And
what's been the key to get people to stay with you for 15 years?
So I feel like for me, it is an extreme focus on service. And I am not the best artist in the world. And actually, that's something else I lean into, because, you know, like, for example, do a little kudo to my hubby over here. He is a very talented artist, and he runs circles around me. In fact, if I'm struggling with something, like, I will actually still struggle, and I'll have to give it to him and have him help me with perspective. Like, it's just funny. Like, I had a lady one time at a class go, oh, it was a llama, and she wanted me to freehand the whole thing, and she's like, I want it turning this way, and I want it to be wearing sunglasses. And I'm very, I know, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm going to get humbled quick, because I am very much like, I have to see it in front of me, and I can draw exactly what I see.
Yeah.
But I'm not great with using my imagination and like imagining that perspective and being able to draw from my mind. So I'm like calling my sweet honey bear over here. And I said, I have to do this. Like, this is a good customer. Like, I can't just say no. I don't really like to say no to anybody anyway. That's another thing I don't do. I tend to say, it's hard for me to say no. So.
Except to me.
Except to him. Yeah.
So.
Well, I know how this works. Yeah. I'm
Yes.
I'm married. Yes.
All right,
So
we've covered it.
Yeah.
I said, can you please figure this out? So he just whips it out. He just draws this llama because I showed him my drawing, and I'm like, this looks so wrong. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, oh, babe. Okay. So he just draws it, looks fantastic. So then once I have that as a reference, then I was able to quickly draw onto her canvas from my husband's drawing because he could just figure it out.
Because now that you see it, it's
yes.
like,
And then it was like,
this.
oh, I see what I'm doing wrong now.
Yeah.
And he just immediately went there and figured it out. Now, what's interesting is that, you know, when Joe deals with people, because he is so talented, he doesn't relate well to the struggle, and he doesn't have the patience that I do. So I feel like sometimes artists who are so talented cannot...
When they're superhuman.
Right.
Yes.
And superhuman like he is. Yeah, we'll throw that in there too. Yeah, so I just relish every sense of struggle, if it's whether it be my struggle or their struggle. Like, I'm fascinated by it. So when I'm dealing with a customer and they're like, I'm just not getting a handle on this, or I can't do this, and if they're really overcomplicating it, or I hate to say, I always have the saying, there are no mistakes, only possibilities. But let's just say that they're really stretching their possibilities. And you're like, wow, what on earth are you doing? Well, then I really want to lean into that, and I want to figure out what it is that they're doing so that I can figure out how to teach to that and help them understand on a level, like with concepts. So, like, one of the things that I always say in my class is I try to gain familiar ground with them. For example, if we're doing a pedal, it becomes parentheses is the pedal, or it could be a letter V, or, just something that we're all familiar with that we have to do every day, so that it gets them thinking about it in a way that they can understand and relate to, instead of this. I steer away from all. I watch other professional artists that they try to be very serious, and they use complicated terms like the ferrule of the brush, and and I'm like, I call my brushes Big Daddy, Mama, Little Buddy, Little Bit. I try to make it simple, fun. Yeah.
Do you have the names on the brushes?
I don't, but that's a great idea. That's a great licensing idea. I like where your head's at.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that this morning, how we really want to, that's, a goal for us in the future is
to create more licensed product.
Licensed product, yes.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so you moved to Guthrie 2012, start doing the Tipsy Artist here downtown. So now you're living in town. Did you come from a small community? What was it like coming to Guthrie? Not so much from a business perspective, but just to live here, because now you're here.
Right. So I have experience with both. So I would say that I was born in California, which was big. And then my parents uprooted me to Midland, Texas. And then I had the opportunity to go to Greenwood, which is the outskirts of Midland, out in the country. We lived a cotton patch away from the school. Okay. And so, very small community, 3A school, which I don't know if that means anything, but essentially I had about 100 people in my class. So everybody knew who I was. I knew everybody. We all knew each other's business. And then I went to Texas Tech. So it was still fairly small because Lubbock is 100,000 people, I guess. And it's probably grown, but at any rate, it was about that. And then when I graduated, then we ended up going to the Dallas area. And we lived there for a long time, that in all kinds of little cities around Dallas. So I'm not saying I didn't enjoy some aspects of that experience, but I remember always feeling so disconnected from everyone. It was so big. And I wanted to be someplace. I missed that feeling of community where everybody kind of knew me.
Name.
Yeah, it's like that Cheers song, where everybody knows my name. And I do remember that when we came to Guthrie, and even Oklahoma City is very big and vast, where you just feel like you're a number, not a personality. And that definitely was a huge change in Guthrie. And I just loved it because we I mean, I always wore my. I don't have a cowboy hat on today. I try not to do that when I do these because of the lighting. Like I look like a raccoon. But typically, I'm always wearing a cowgirl hat. That's my uniform, and I always wear like bell-bottom pants or painted jeans or something. But it's usually pretty flamboyant. I'm a loud character in terms of how I look. So everywhere I go, there's a Tipsy Artist, you know. And I noticed that Guthrie had a lot of characters. You know, I don't remember his name, but he used to wear the top hat and he had a little cane.
Oh, yeah.
And he would whistle everywhere.
Yes. Oh, man. Y'all know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but so he and I would be circling the blocks together, you know, and I mean, it was just really
Do you
funny.
have Ray?
Yeah, so Ray, the bootmaker,
Yeah,
you know, he's always,
Yeah.
So he's another character. So we just, and it was funny this morning, I do my YouTube, I watch those city tours where they just walk around a city. I don't know if you've ever seen those or not.
No.
Well, they're kind of interesting. It's just kind of like a nice white noise. Well, one of our kids lives in New York right now. And so I thought, I'm going to watch New York. I'm going to watch people walk around New York and see if I see anything crazy, you know. So it's just, this is an evening stroll through, like, all around New York. And, you know, they all look the same.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'd stand out there.
Yeah, there's no characters. There's no characters, full-time characters in New York. So talking about you being a character, that's so true. Like, I mean, every time I see you, like, she's not out of uniform.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is that easy? I mean, now it's probably natural. When did you start, like, I'm just going to stay Tipsy Artist 24/7?
So I became So I have to give a lot of credit to my honey bear again on this. When we were
He's a character.
He is a character.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when we met, I'll talk a little bit about this, a little side note here, but when I came to Oklahoma, he made Oklahoma become very small for me because he had a show on PBS called the Utopia Joe Show. So he was very well known for that. And then we, you know, kind of quickly started figuring out how are we going to make money as artists? So that became a big theme in our conversation. And then, of course, you know, kind of fast forward to Tipsy Artist. But I was a little bit shy initially in my approach and maybe trying to be too much like everybody else, even though I definitely had a look. I mean, he knew who I was. He knew I was painted jeans, and I was always wearing cowgirl hats and painted jeans. And then, but what was interesting is I actually initially started to lean into I need to wear an apron and I need to have a certain look. It's the way everybody else looks, you know. And he was like, no, you don't. You need to be who you are. And he had worked for a lot of other big companies in the past, too, that were big brands like Precious Moments and Laurel Birch. And so he understood that you have to become the brand. And so he was the one who made my logo and made it me as that cartoon character, like a Marvel, you know, superhero type. And then basically told me to really just be who I was and just be myself.
Yeah.
So that was a huge piece of amazing advice that really, I think, catapulted me to somebody who did get noticed, not just like on the streets of Guthrie, for example, but also online. It made me stand out because I was wearing paint splattered clothing, which I stole from him. He had that look already, and he would intentionally splatter all of his clothing. And so I had him do all my jeans too, with intention, to where it was really loud and bright. And we would start to splatter everything. So he designed all of my costumes, clothing, so to speak.
Your hat is splattered right now.
Yes, he did this. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe did this.
And then
Thanks,
your van, wasn't your van splattered too? No.
Yes. Well, Joe painted the whole van.
Oh.
It is
a machine.
Yes, it is a flower power hippie van. Looks like Scooby Doo.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Do y'all still have that van?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Still runs.
I need clear coat on it because
Yeah.
it's starting to crack. It's got a beautiful cracked.
Yeah.
Needs a little update.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah, I love it. I want to paint the flex next. I
I
want
get
to.
so many compliments.
Oh, yeah. The flex would be legit.
I'm like, it's boring.
Yeah,
you
it
know
is
what I
boring
mean?
for you all.
But he's like, now he's kind of tired.
Yeah.
He's
at,
like,
at one point, that would have gave him energy. He's like, "Oh my goodness!"
yeah,
no.
but now he's maybe going to hand me we still have the templates that he made, that I could maybe trace around. He might just sit out there by me and supervise, tell me what to do while I paint the flex.
I'll be the tired artist.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, in this, as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, like, based on just being artists, you all have you just have the gifting and the talent to do these collectively, right? But also, artists aren't known to make a ton of money for the most part, right? So is some of this because, well, if we're gonna make a living off of doing this, we need to do some of this stuff ourselves, or is it just naturally you just kind of are pulled towards doing these things because they're creative?
So, yeah, the doing for ourselves, that's a blessing and a curse, right? Like how to let go and let others. But yeah, for sure, I think how we got into it, because we didn't have capital, we didn't have angel funds. Well, it was scary, actually, what we had. Like very, very little. I think we had about $400 in our account when we started. And then Joe made all of my easels by hand. And, we would do little tiny, classes. And every time we would just continue to reinvest. And, for sure, that big class you saw that was my angel fund, if you will, like what really kind of like put the money back into the business to help me get over 1,000 easels and 1,000 buckets and 1,000 sets of paintbrushes and, that kind of thing. But, yeah, what was the question? I don't know. If
So I was asking, was some of this you all doing things yourself come out of just being able to make a living as an artist versus being a starving artist?
Absolutely.
Or
by force.
Yeah,
we had to
yeah.
make a living with this. It definitely put us up against that wall where, and I am most definitely an entrepreneur where I just cannot work for other people. Very creative, free-spirited, have to do my own thing. I come from that. My father always had his own company, always an entrepreneur. He always told me he's like, baby girl, I've been a millionaire many times over, lost it. You get a million, lose a million, get a million, lose a million.
Yeah.
So, but he just was so attracted to it, and it's really one of the hardest ways to make a living that there is.
Yeah.
It's can be very stressful, filled with tons of risk. But if you love it, and you just really can't work for anybody else. And I do know that about myself now, that I have to, I have to do my own thing. And so that's part of what it was. And then just out of necessity to provide, health insurance and roof over our heads. And, and then we're just really fortunate that God really decided to bless us, to an even bigger, level than I had ever imagined, so, but we definitely always wanted to, we've always had big goals for it though. In fact, we're not anywhere close to where we really want to be still. I mean, we still have the vision for licensed, branded product, and it's definitely still what we want to do in our future too, so.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's been a time around that I've been around you all and hadn't felt like, oh, they're always dreaming. Like there's always a dream or a project or something that is in go. For example, you just talked about, you all this morning talking about licensing and product and just kind of dreaming together. And, one of the thoughts that I had for you all was for you, like entrepreneur versus creative. Like, do you see yourself as an entrepreneur, or do you see yourself as a creative? And I guess meaning like, no, I'm just an entrepreneur first. I just like to make my own money. It just so happens that I'm a creative and I use those as the avenue to make the money. Or do you say, no, I'm a creative, but I gotta be an entrepreneur so I can keep being creative?
So that's a great way to frame the question. I would say, so as I've been tested, I always come out whole brained. So I don't lean to the right necessarily. However, I've had the experience in my past of just having a marketing company too, where I was way more heavy in my mind on marketing and being just an entrepreneur, where I was having to push all kinds of different businesses out and promote them. So, and I took great pleasure in doing that, you know, in terms of like restaurants and mainly restaurants. I was mainly in the hospitality industry with like hotels and restaurants and things like that. But then it's kind of the best, happiest marriage of the two worlds, because obviously I was an artist. That was my degree in school. And then the teaching, it all kind of came together. I don't know that I could, if I were going to section it up in a pie, I would almost want to say that it's, you know, a piece of pie is entrepreneur, and then one is artist, and then one is also just is teaching. So when I was in college, I remembered I had an instructor that came to me and said, you don't know it yet, but you're going to be a teacher. That is what you are going to be. That is your real gift. And I loved creative lesson plans, and I absolutely adored it. And then I actually did go into school teaching first, and then got a taste of marketing, and then it kind of came all back around full circle, where I figured out a way to combine all my strengths all together.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
Tell me how you ended up in the marketing piece.
So I actually, so when I came to Oklahoma, I had been doing marketing primarily actually the first big marketing gig I had was for my ex-husband in Texas, because he had a really successful career as a children's musician. So again, that's a completely different, you know, genre of work. But we were able to, I mean, he was one of the top in the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I just loved it. Like I'd go in Dallas Morning News and bake him cookies and say, you need to put this on your. And so sure enough, we'd get this energy, going, and I was like, ooh, I like this.
Energy or synergy?
Yeah. energy and synergy. Yes. But yeah, so I loved it. I just loved the promotion part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very drawn to that. And then when I moved to Oklahoma, then, moved in with my parents and then met Joe. And then I just thought, well, because my first gig in Oklahoma was actually the logistics coordinator for Oklahoma Creativity Project. So that was definitely taking care of everybody, but it had a lot to do with promotion for every single person. And so I thought, well, I'll just lean into this and go with it. And then certain connections started to happen, and I took my little company at the time, and I just it was just a way to make money. I mean, I was side hustling every which way but loose. I mean, I was teaching classes at home, and we were working on my art and selling art, and then I was trying to do the marketing thing, and so we were a little distracted too, because there were so many side hustles happening. We didn't know which thing was going to take off. But I do remember really loving the marketing part, and so I started working for restaurants and hotels in the area, and then eventually, and then through Joe and some of his work too, he got a gig with Midtown with Bob Howard. And then he did a big construction thing for them. And then towards the end of that, we knew we were going to have to take this big, free-for-all. And that's actually a lot of what brought Tipsy Artist. It was like a Tipsy Artist had to really come to life too. Like there's no safety net anymore, because his gig was ending with them, and all my little side hustle things weren't going to cut it. Yeah. And then I took, they were really kind. They gave me a really nice little marketing promo gig for Midtown. And I think that was the $400 I referred to earlier that was in our bank account to get us going, you know. And we came to Guthrie and we had to just really hit it, like make it go from a part-time fun, get a little fun money, you know, pay the groceries or whatever, but it had to be our all in all.
Yeah. So was it the location that got y'all to Guthrie? Was it the building that?
Yeah, well, so we didn't buy the building until quite a bit later.
Well, I'm saying the building that you were in.
Yeah, so
before the one
that was a building owned by Terry Bobo, and
Yeah.
then before that, we actually did. This is really, you know, another God thing too, but we met Gary Good.
Okay.
And he had that little art gallery there, and he said, you know, I'll let you live upstairs, and you can do all the marketing and promotional work for the art gallery. So I was able to do my classes out of the gallery downstairs, with no overhead.
Oh, gotcha.
And then have a free place to live.
Yeah.
And the $400 in our pocket.
So was the classes the same thing as Tipsy Artist?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So was the classes, is that what you're referring to when you say Tipsy Artist? Okay.
Yeah, because we used to do some classes over in Midtown, you know, when we had the Bob Howard gig, you know, that Joe had. But then, yeah, when we came to Guthrie, then it was like everything was flowing out of that gallery. And then our growth became so explosive so quickly that we ended up we had to have a bigger space. We were averaging 50 in that tiny little gallery. We were, you know, like sardines, you know, just crammed in there.
Then you moved to Terry's place?
Yeah, Terry Bobo's. Yeah.
And
he is an amazing person.
Because that place was packed out. It was more than 50.
So we would pack out 100 in there.
Okay.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And all the time, every time. Yeah, it was just sold out. And then I did finally have to, you know, just go out on the road and start doing it everywhere. And
what was your favorite road show?
That'd be the big one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
The one with all the people.
Yeah, the one with all the people. Yes.
Of course that's the favorite.
Yeah. I'm hardwired for it. I love it. I've known that. So, you know, it's a weird deal because even though when I was younger, I did have a little bit of that shy thing, but there was something that I noticed. I tried out for cheerleader. It was my first year to do that. And something just clicked in me where there was an entire stadium filled with people, and I just came alive, and I loved it, and I thrived off of it. Then all of a sudden, I had more personality, more energy. I was more on. I couldn't stop screaming, high kicking, yelling, you know, and I just went nuts for it. Like I just loved it. Yeah. So when I had that big, giant group of people, it just sends off that little click, and I just feed off their energy, and I love it, and it just gives me more momentum.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious because it almost could feel like you work 24 hours a day, like 24/7. Okay.
That's true. I do love it.
I do love it. What do you do? And this question may be not the right way of putting this because it sounds like what you do is fun. So, but what do you do for fun that's not attached to work?
I don't know that. I mean, I love it so much. I can't stop talking about it. I get on his ever-loving last nerve because I don't stop talking about it. Like there are times when he has to say, "I love you so much. Can we not talk about Tipsy Artist for?"
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Tiffany, please. Tiffany, my wife. Is she in there?
Yeah, it's real.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, just my favorite things to do in terms of, aside from that, are probably just hanging out with my family and just chilling, just hanging out, you know. I mean.
It's a big day if we go out and eat or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like just get out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because when you just get out, like, to break away from having just a normal conversation, is that just Because do you talk about movies? Do you talk what do you talk about if you're not talking about work?
So we do talk about movies a lot, and I think that's primarily because Joe has such a strong interest in editing and film production. So, but that's probably a good thing. The other thing I feel like I try to do more now is I try to take a stronger interest just by asking a lot of questions, like with my kids, for example. I'll say, but it's still so similar. It's interesting because, like, I probably talk to I talk to both my son and my daughter, well, a lot, but, and it's funny because my son is hardwired just like me. He's the entrepreneur.
Okay.
So he and I just go off on.
Now, who's in New York? Well,
Okay, well, that's Logan, my oldest stepson.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we've got, excuse me, Vanessa is my stepdaughter. Now, she lives in Oklahoma City. And then my kids, that's London and Hawkins. And Hawkins is still in college, and he'll be a sophomore. But he's very entrepreneurial, and he's already talking about, he's taking my T-shirts, and he's like, I want to take Tipsy Artist worldwide.
Oh, he wants to come. He wants to come work for you.
So he and I are like, so even though, so it's kind of like Joe, like, I don't even know if I can really call it a break, from my world, but he and I are constantly talking about it. And we go off into the deep end there. But then my daughter just graduated from college, and she is a special needs education teacher. She's, teaching she'll be a 7th grade teacher.
Oh, she's far away from doing what she's teaching.
She's teaching.
Yeah, a big part of what she do is teaching.
So I love it. So I'm always asking her, like, just about all of her methods, and I'm so fascinated by the special needs. In fact, I'm always thinking, ooh, what does God have for me? Like, because I just find it to be so fascinating that she's in this field, and that I'm learning more about it, with her, vicariously through her. But I love teaching. I think it's fascinating. So I just constantly talk to her about teaching.
That's cool.
So, but yeah.
No, that's really awesome. Tell me, so what's next?
Well, yeah, we're always talking about that. Mommy, Big Daddy brushes and yes. So we're actually starting to evolve more into the there's a lot of brainstorming with this in terms of the how. And I'm very prayerful about how God wants me to do it, but I want to still continue to keep my audience with my customers who are just, they have no desire in being me, but they want to just come and paint, relax.
Yeah.
But then there's an evolution to providing, not exactly sure what it looks like just yet, but providing tools and products for people who are also in the paint and sip industry.
Gotcha.
So where I'm, could be, a mentor of sorts, and could help, with products that, could help them in their journey too.
That's cool.
So that's one thing that we're looking at, and still doing. There was a big resurgence in the market since the pandemic. So we've definitely seen a big comeback with crowds. It's like it feels like a whole new thing to get back out there again. So we definitely.
I've been seeing on social media. I've been seeing shows. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, have you been having to travel for any, or have they just all kind of been here at your space?
We still do classes every weekend in Guthrie at our home, and but we are getting back out there and traveling again too. So we're getting back out there to Enid, Norman, Shawnee for right now. But I'm trying to just do that, not as much as I used to. It's more like every quarter, Gotcha. And then keep the energy, back at Guthrie. And then we also have the Airbnbs. We're actually 5-star rated super hosts with our Airbnbs in Guthrie.
So is Airbnb is it still strong?
It's huge, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
Y'all have a great space too.
We do. It's really beautiful, and Joe's put a tremendous amount of work into it.
What can't Joe do?
I know he's amazing.
Every time we mention something, it's like what Joe is putting in teeth. He's adding dentures to all of our.
Yeah, exactly.
all our Airbnb guests that need teeth. Yeah, Joe's just go ahead and add dentures to our lineup. Big Daddy dentures.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, do y'all have space for a podcast booth down there? One day I need to get back downtown at some point. So
well, that's interesting. On my side, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love if you want to carve out a
little hole.
I mean, I'm just looking at this, and
that is interesting.
we carve out a little.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. I'm doing what you're doing. In the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we only have classes now. It seems like whatever. I mean, I get private ones occasionally, but it's mostly just like on the weekends and stuff like that. So yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Maybe something to talk about.
That's right.
Yeah, I just want to be able to walk. Like
how far from downtown do you live?
I'm by the temple.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna buy me a scooter in July. Because they don't do the Lime things anymore. So.
Well, you can.
We wondered about
golf carts, so you can get you a golf cart.
They are legal.
Golf carts are kind of. When I was looking, I was like, "Oh, you want me to buy a car?"
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the scooters are kind of expensive. Like the one that I'm looking at now is like on sale for $750. I'm like, they're kind of expensive.
Yeah,
so.
that's interesting.
The last couple of questions. Okay. What does it mean to community wins when you hear? That's a hashtag that we've been using periodically throughout our community. Just what does that mean?
So, what I think it means is. Well, the first thought I had that comes to my mind is just we've got your back.
Yeah.
And then also, I really love the fact that, and I can't speak for anybody else, but just for us, I just feel like Guthrie is a very inclusive, non-judgmental community. Yeah. They are extremely loving. You can just, and I realize, part of it, I go to your church too, but. It's more than that. I feel like it's widespread through the community too, where you can, come there broken, and they'll mend you right back up and be very healing and understanding and very helpful. I mean, because not just things that don't even have anything to do with the church. Well, that's a big plus. But when we were starting to do everything. People were just so excited to help us.
Yeah.
I mean, just here's the roadmap, and and just wanting to mentor me at every turn. I have to give a big shout out to, there's a lot of people. I don't want to leave anybody out, but oh gosh, there's so many. But Ben Coffin was a huge guy at the very beginning. He just would give me his tables and chairs. Yeah. Just use them. You know. And then Debbie Prather was another one, Stables owner, Stables Cafe. She's so seasoned as a strong businesswoman with behind the scenes business sense. Yeah. And I would come to her with really tough, hard questions, and she'd just lay out the roadmap, and just go, I've been down that road. Here's exactly what I did. And, just stuff like that. And then there's just been so many angels in the community that have helped us through tough times, there's Mark with Integrated. He is amazing, helped us so much, survived through the pandemic. Sonny Ojeda is another one, just such like an angel from God, So
just a bunch of good people.
Just so many good people. Yeah. Very helpful.
Yeah. That's
yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to share a little bit of your story. I know there's always some. I'm like, I could be Joe Rogan and sit here for 3 more hours. And just listen to people.
She can talk for
I sure can.
Yes. Thank you so much. Tell people how they can find you.
Tipsyartist.com. www.tipsyartist.com.
And then all of your social handles will be there and all that.
They're all the
stuff.
same. It's all just Tipsy Artist.
Upcoming events and all
and I will give the spelling TIPSYARTIST. Just, just in
Is
case.
there another way to?
Yes, apparently.
Unfortunately, there are little copycatters out there that are trying to change
got
the
you.
spelling. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just recently had somebody, I guess, create a Facebook page for Hetty Coleman, and then they were trying. So I'm doing this giveaway for school teachers
Yes.
for a 2-night stay at the Ellison. And so somebody created a whole Facebook page and was asking people, telling people to give them their credit card information and all this stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
based on this giveaway. Like, hey, you won. Send it to everybody.
no.
You know, they hacked it, sent it to everybody, said you won. And this is my picture. And everything. I was like, that is so crazy that they would do something like that.
I'm glad you told me that because I don't think I'd even ever thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Wait, which one? The giveaway's a great idea or the hacking is a great idea?
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much. And
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission to have every story told. Will yours be next?